There are plenty of tools and ways of making selections that we can then turn into masks, and many of them are found, of course, in the toolbox. We have our marquee set of tools, and we'll be taking individual classes to look at each of these. I'm just trying to show you a quick overview of where things are located. Then, along with that, we have the 3 lasso tools. Notice, by the way, that as we look at these tools, there's a single letter, in this case L for lasso, which also means when you're working you can click on the tool to activate it. Then there's 2 tools that share the same place, the quick selection tool and the magic wand tool. Now it seems kind of odd to have W as the keyboard command for quick selection, but that's because magic wand was there first and it's W for wand, so the quick selection tool shares that spot. These are both kind of automated tools, and these are the ones you'll use probably most commonly. Further down we have the pen tool, which is a little more specialized and frankly takes a bit more practice. You may not find that many occasions to use it, although we will be talking about it. Down at the very bottom we have something called Quick Mask, which is a mode we can work into both preview and fine-tune our selection. And then we have the select menu. Now at first most of the things under here are not active, so let's go ahead and just make a very basic selection, just a rectangular marquee. Once I've done that, then we have more options. For example, deselect, which will take away our selection, or inverse, to select the opposite of what we have. So sometimes it's a lot easier to select the opposite of what you want and end up with the correct thing selected. So I'm going to inverse it again. Now, some of the other options are a command like modify, where we can decide to change that. Now, honestly, these options in here are a lot easier now to access using this command called refine edge, which we'll also be talking about a little later on, because it's a really important way to work. One of the important things to note with any of our tools, when you go and click on a tool to use it, there are some options up in the options bar. For example, in the marquee tool, we have options such as feathering and then the style. Normal simply means click and drag any old shape you want, and then there are other options such as fixed ratio and fixed size. Now again, we'll be talking about these later. I just want to point out that one of the habits you need to develop is as soon as you click on a tool or press the shortcut like L for lasso, you got to take a quick glance in the options bar to see if you need to change anything. The good news is many of the tools you don't really need to, and I'm going to suggest to you, for reasons you'll see as we go throughout this whole course, you probably don't want to change the feathering up here. Feathering is the softness of the edge of our selection. Generally we want to add that later, not make a selection with that already set. So a very common selection kind of workflow is to look at what it is you're trying to select and make some decisions. I would always try the automated tool first, because if it works, it'll be much quicker. As an example, I want to select the background in behind them to change it. Well, if I sat there with the lasso tool and tried to painstakingly go around and select this whole thing, it could take a while. So I'm going to try a tool like the quick selection tool, and you can see very quickly it's not perfect, but it gives me a pretty good start. Then I would switch to other tools and try different combinations. One of the things we'll talk about also, once we get these little introductory things out of the way, is how to use tools in conjunction with each other to fine-tune our selection to make it better. Now, here's one thing that I want to address right up front, because this can be both a very useful command, but it can also give you the biggest headache if you're not thinking about it very carefully. So let's say, for the sake of argument, that I have made a selection that I'm trying to lighten part of her hair or something like that, and it's a little hard to see what I'm doing, so I use a command that's available here called, it's actually under the show menu, but it's called selection edges. Now if it's already selected, that means I'm going to hide the selection edges. Now here's the trick. So that selection is hidden, but it's still the only active part of my document. So if I tried to go on and do something like use the dodge tool to lighten up the shadows over here, and I wonder why nothing's happening even though I'm going over and over the same place, it's because this is the only active area. I just can't see it right now because my selection is hidden. So unfortunately there's no visual indicator to tell you you have hidden the edges of your selection. The keyboard shortcut is Command or Control H for hide or show edges. Think of it as hide, but it's actually a toggle. H will show, H will hide again. So now I'm hiding and showing. So that's just something I want to address up front, because frankly it can be very useful to hide the edge of your selection so you can move on to the next step, but then you have to somehow remember you've hidden those edges. So that gives us a very, very quick overview of the tools, where we find them, and the concept of using them together. Now let's start looking at each individual set of tools and see what they can be used for.